then the second question is, what made it possible? We, in our discussion, realized that what made it possible was employers giving time to their employees to create innovative ideas, and then the support from the employers of Google. The third question is, what lessons have you learned? We've learned that we have to give a platform for everyone to express their ideas. You never know what someone is thinking. You don't have to undermine anyone's idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Please hang in there. Take over. Your minutes are not yet over.
Thank you, Madam. My name is Naruga Juliet. I'm going to take you through what our discussion was all about. Google's business was about innovation, and the employer was giving a chance to employees to exercise their duties, like doing a business outside their workplace. That's all about it.
They managed their time properly, and she was clever enough because we were going to catch up and say, what were you discussing? They hadn't told us what their case was, but I'm happy she was able to summarize it. Thank you, Group 1.
Good afternoon, members. My name is Mukunzi Elisha, and what stood out for us as... Okay. Oh, I thought we were all given the same story. We didn't, sorry about that. Okay, our group, we were discussing, our case is about Kenny was an intra worker, like sort of intra, you heard about entrepreneur, yeah. A person who develops a company, like, yeah. So this Kenny was employed in Sony, and that Sony, you know about it, it makes sound bars, like television, sort of. So this Sony, this Ken, as a worker in Sony, he bought his daughter. His daughter is called, so let's say the daughter is called Dana. Yeah, he bought he bought a PlayStation for Hannah, and not a PlayStation. By then it wasn't a PlayStation, sort of a game. Yeah, it was a gaming. Game. So that daughter found out that game had no clear sound. It was missing something. So Kenny was like, okay, let me work on it. He started consulting, doing that to work on his on that sound for the game. And then he went to Sony. He proposed them an idea of what he had invented, which was CD by then. So he went to Sony and told them that, I think we can do this thing better. They invented CD. So CEOs refused him his idea, but yeah, some people bought it. So Kenny did what? Continued and invented what we call PlayStation. You all know PlayStation. In this story, they are asking what stood out for us. What stood out for us is creativity and innovation. We are in a world of that every day we are inventing. So this PlayStation has made more money than what Sony was making currently before it enters into this game. So creativity and innovation is the key. What made this innovation possible? It's critical thinking. Kenny went extra mile to do this thing better. And he saw that the problem was there, so he solved the problem. This is what made this innovation possible. Always innovation are made by seeing a gap and solving the problem. So what lesson have you learned? The lesson we've learned in our group is a gap in anything is an opportunity. Kenny saw a gap and got an opportunity to make more money. So plus what? Determination and passion. He was passionate. Some people, like managing director, refused his idea, but he did what? He said, no, this should work. And yeah, it worked. Thank you.
Please take note, at the end we will give feedback. What went well on their presentation, What do you think was a tick? Yeah, that feedback will be necessary. Group 3. So which group are you?
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Nankunda Heather, representing Group 2. So I'm going to give kind of a story. I'm not going to read everything. So this is about Google as an organization giving their employees 1 day per week to pursue other projects out of their field. And then some employees emerging forces and doing some internal projects within the organization, and then some too come up with another project that's Gmail, and most of the workers feel it's a bad idea, but the co-founders take it on, and Gmail ended up becoming successful, and it's now active. Over 1.5 billion people are using it. So I'm going to go with what stood out for us, and then lessons. Then I'm going to end with question number 2. What made the innovation possible? So what stood out for us first was teamwork, because we see that the employees would merge up and do some internal projects, then thinking out of the box. Remember, when we get contracts, the organization tells you you're supposed to be doing this, 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 but you as an employee, you can think of something else that you can add to the organization. And then the other thing that stood out for us is believing in yourself, in what you can do. Then when we go to the lessons are not giving up was the first lesson, because when the other people came up with, not giving up, teamwork was still our lesson, and then standing out of the crowd, because the other 2 employees stood out and had to take on an internal project which became successful. And then what made the project possible was taking risk and accepting change, and then the innovation culture of an organization that allowed workers to make research, maybe provided room for that development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Group 2. Group 4.
Good afternoon. Aleppo Fidali, Group 4. I want to give an overview of the case study. It's about a character called Ken Kutaragi, who buys a console for a daughter and then finds out that there is a problem with the system, sound system. So what happens? He sells out his idea to Nintendo, because that's where he had bought it from. And then they fail to buy the idea. So what happens is, because he was working for Sony, he sells the idea to Sony. But you find out that not everybody buys it out. And so it's only the CEO who gives him a go-ahead. And as for that, he manages to develop that sound system for them. Okay? And at the end of the day, you find that it becomes so successful. So that's just an overview, it's a summary. Questions? What stood out for you? So as for our group, what stood out for us was Kenny was able to identify a need. That means a problem, and then he was able to upgrade the sound system. So he first identified the problem, and later on he looked for the solution of the problem. So that calls for an open-mindedness, that in everything you do, wherever you are in your environment, always try to look for solution to issues. Don't just sit like blockheads. Okay, number 2, what made this innovation possible? We find out that resilience and persistence made it possible because much as in the first company he was rejected, he didn't sit back, he wasn't devastated, he moved on with his idea. He had a vision, he had a plan, okay? He was never shut down, he was never hushed. And what lessons do you learn? We learned so many. First of all, problem-solving skills, okay? And that's self-explanatory, I don't need to talk much. And then having a positive attitude. Much as he was hushed, he never set back because his mindset and his attitude all were positive. He was telling himself, I can do this and I can do it. And then believing in himself, he knew he would do it. He also had critical thinking. He was thinking open-mindedly. And then also this company gave employees chance and time to innovate. Had they been so conservative, they would say, no, this is for us alone, okay? They would be so selfish, but they were not. Thank you so much for giving me audience.
Thank you so much, Group 4. I hope you're noting what has gone well in the presentation. Very, very important. And what needs to be improved. Group 5.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ruth Anna from Group 5. Our case study is about the Gmail. You see the Gmail CEO gave 20% time policy to his employees to invest, that's about a day in a week, to pursue projects outside their area of duty. And he encouraged them to think outside the box. So Paul, who is an employee, came up with an idea of expanding the Google services by developing Gmail. I believe all of us know Gmail, and we have email. So he was discouraged by other employees, his fellow workers, but the CEOs took interest in him and his project, and they supported him. And in 2004, Gmail became the first landmark service since 1998. Right now, Gmail has more than 1.5 billion users. So what stood out for us in these case studies? One was the support from the management. We all know in different companies, few people give time to employees to go and do things outside their normal duty. So their support stood out for us. And then number 2, Paul's resilience. We see that he was discouraged by the fellow employees. If you were someone who was shy and then kind of discouraged, you will not sell out the ideas to the CEOs, but he will stop at sharing it with our colleagues. But he didn't stop there because he knew what he wanted. He was focused and resilient. And the other part is that he was innovative and creative. Not to waste time, some of the things I mentioned, but let me go to part 2. What made this innovation possible? Number 1, the favorable conditions provided by the management. We see that if they are not given time, Paul will not have time to go and work on his project of Gmail. And he may have not come up with that idea because he will not be given time. So support from the management made it possible. And then number 2, time management. All of them were given the same time, but he managed his time well, and he came up with that project. And also number 3, he had the entrepreneurial mindset to think outside the box and come up with a workable solution to improve on the Google services. Number 3, the lessons learned. Number 1, we have teamwork. Here we realize that these guys work together, and the CEOs helped Paul
they worked with them together to ensure that his dream of making Gmail come true. And then number 2, we should always be creative. When we are given chance, we should always be creative and come up with solutions that we think, okay, we think there are some things we just think it is imaginary, they don't happen. But when when you're creative, you try to write it down and put it into action, and it will work for you. And then number 3, we see that the beginning is always the hardest. It was hard for him. He didn't know he would make it, but he persevered. So the last one is, when you're given chance, use it wisely. Most of us are given chance, but we don't use it wisely. As the other speaker said, those who succeed in life, they are not the best, but those who make the best out of what the world has offered to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Group 5, Group 6.
Thank you so much. This is Group 6, Najita Aisha. So our case study is about Sony's entrepreneur, Ken. So Ken bought a Nintendo game to his daughter, but then he observed that the game had some sound problems. Then Ken detected that a digital chip could change the sound or could make it better. So he introduced his idea to the Nintendo game, but then they rejected it. So after it being rejected, he brought the idea back to Sony, and they accepted it. So what stood out for us is Ken did not just give up. After him being rejected by Nintendo, he brought back the idea to Sony, and then Ken was observant, and he embraced the problem. He was observant of the problem, and he embraced it. So what made the innovation possible? Ken had knowledge of what he was doing. And then Ken received support from his chairman at Sony. The lessons we learned to be caring and observant of things around us. Because if Ken didn't buy his daughter the Nintendo game, he wouldn't have identified the problem. Then we learned to be creative and innovative. Then we learned to be persistent, because Ken was rejected, but then he didn't just give up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Group 6. You actually saved 16 seconds. That was on point. Thank you. Group 7.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm representing Group 7, and ours was about employee-employer, and Paul was the employee, and he gave time to his employers to go outside and think out of the box and do some other thing. And this was about Google service. They wanted to develop a web-based engine that would provide the search engine. Yes, some people believed in him and other people didn't believe in him, but they went ahead to do it. Then what stood out for us was positive attitude of Paul. He didn't stop from there. However much they didn't believe in him, they went on. Then secondly, support from the founders. Thirdly, 20% time policy, because they would give them time, 20%, that was once in a week that they would do this. Teamwork, collaboration, creativity of Paul, then the success of the Gmail. Then the second was what made this innovation possible, the support from the founders. Secondly, teamwork, Paul's confidence, he was confident in himself. Then the 20% time policy. What lessons have you learned? Resilience. Secondly, being creative. Yes, Paul was so creative. Then thirdly, critical thinking. Yeah, that is all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Group 7, for your presentation. You saved 13 seconds. Group 8.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel, and we shall be handling the case study of the PlayStation. So we have the character called Ken. Ken worked for a company called Sony, and he was an amazing father. So as an amazing father, he bought his daughter a gift, a game. So as the daughter was playing with the game, he realized that there was a problem in the sound that was coming out from the game. So he went back to this company. The company is called Nintendo. So he went back to the company, and he said he has an idea that he could use to make it produce better sound. And he used the consultant. He was connected. So he was working along with the consultant and was like, he has an idea that could make the sound that comes from the games sound better. And this consultant was so good that they went ahead with the idea. But when they presented the idea to Nintendo, they didn't buy it. They rejected the idea. Ken didn't get very much disappointed. He went back to his company. While he was still working at Sony, he was doing this part-time. He was part-timing at the gaming company, and also at the same time he was working with Sony. So when they rejected this idea, he didn't stop at that. He went ahead and shared this idea with his boss. Though very many people didn't believe in his idea, his boss, who knew how much effort he puts in and how much focused he is, how much skill he has, was like, I'm going to stand with Ken, and we shall see to it that this idea comes out and it's implemented. So when they started working on with the sound and the CDs, this company, today Sony gets most of its revenue from the idea of the PlayStation, which generates about 40% of Sony's income. So the lesson that we have learned from Ken's story is that you don't give up. No matter how bad the situation is, always look for an option and keep moving forward. Then be resilient. You're always going to face hurdles on the road, but you don't stop there. You have to keep moving and become better at everything that you do. You have to make sure that you also learn to collaborate and have teamwork with the people that you're working with so that they can always stand out and defend you when the need comes. Then what stood out for us was Ken's resilience and not giving up was the relationship he had with his boss that made this innovation to get to where it is. Then, lastly, it's all related, but the lessons that we have learned from this is you don't give up, stay focused, and be a good father to your children because you don't know what will come out of it.
Thank you. You took some more 30 seconds, but thank you so much, Group 8. Group 9.
Thank you so much. My name is Joshua Akamprera. We are working at PlayStation as a case study. About the PlayStation, there happened to be a man called Ken who was working for Sony. That's way back, 1975. Ken bought a Nintendo game console, of which he realized it had a problem with the quality of the sound. So he figured out a digital chip that would improve on that. So he sold the idea of the chip to Nintendo. So a Nintendo company employed him, of which he worked for them for some time, as he kept his job at Sony. So when Nintendo decided not to continue, he sold the idea to Sony. The management of Sony, most of them declined the idea, but the CEO took it up. And they thanked him because of his creativity and innovativeness. Right now, Sony is getting 40% of its revenue from the PlayStation. What stood out for us as a team? Kenny's innovativeness and creativity are well stated in the story. Because if it wasn't because of his innovativeness and creativity, he wouldn't have found out that chip that would improve the quality of the sound. Then Kenny's ability to diversify and get out of his comfort zone. Here, I mean, Ken was working for Sony. Sony is a very big company. He didn't sit down and say, I have a Sony job. He went out, he acquired another job from Nintendo. Then Kenny's ability to get a quick solution for the sound problem. If it was me, you would sit down there and say, after all, it's not my company. He saw a gap where he would come in and he sold his idea to the Nintendo and he took it up. Then what made the innovation possible? The Sony CEO's recognition. If the Sony CEO had taken side of the other members of the management, this innovation wouldn't be in place. Then Nintendo's failure to continue in the business. I still believe if Nintendo had remained in the business, Sony wouldn't have got that idea because Nintendo was employing this man. This man wouldn't have sold the idea to Sony, yet these people are employing him. Then the availability of the market. This man had a ground to stand and tell the Sony management and pitch out to them that this PlayStation or this idea has market. If Nintendo had not practiced it before, because he had worked in Nintendo, he had seen how they sell. So when he saw the opportunity there, he sold his idea because of the market available. The lessons, we learned stepping out of our comfort zone and do extra work. We learned to be innovative and creative. Then utilizing the available resource. The resource here I mean, when he came, saw Nintendo coming out of the business, he saw the resource of the Sony. Sony is a very big company. Let me go and pitch out this idea to the management, and the management is a resource. They have the capital to do that. So, utilize the available resources. Then observation skills. He observed that the game had the sound problems. So, problem solving, well explanatory, then flexibility, development skills. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Group 9. You went overboard by a minute, but thank you. Group 10.
Thank you so much. Charikola Fralens Kayesu, Group 10. I am presenting about Google and Gmail. So ELK, Google's CEO encourages his employees to think outside of the box. And then there comes Paul, who is so creative, and he came out with an idea of the Gmail. And he got support from the founders, and he went through, and now Gmail is being used by so many people. One question is, what stood out for us was creativity and innovation. Creativity and innovation is what makes many people who are successful stand out, because they have different ideas that are so different from others. And then also we have a question that says, what made the idea go through? The support from the founders. If they never allowed Paul to continue with his thought, it wouldn't be in place right now. And then also flexibility for both the founders and the employees. The employees had the choice to say, for us, we don't want to think outside the box. We would use our time maybe for watching movies and the rest. And then so risking and teamwork. The teamwork between the founders and Paul. And then also, what do we learn from this? Be very clear about what you're presenting to your bosses and your founders. because if Paul was not so clear about what he wanted, he would not have gone through. And then also, think big. Gmail wasn't something small, so he thought it was going to happen, and it happened. And then also, be unique. Paul's colleagues got other startups that they did in the organization, but Paul stood out alone, himself, and he stood out. So being unique makes you special. Then also, as we are growing up, believe in yourself and give a platform for others to grow when you're the founders or the employers. Thank you so much.
Another round of applause to the entire team. Thank you so much for articulating these case studies, because they kind of replicate what you're going to go through in your workplaces. So I know some of you have some feedback. This exercise was good for you to think about the case, the issues, but also your presentation style, your presentation, the way you appeal. I do a lot of investment pitching for social entrepreneurs, and I always watch and see how do you make an investor want to give you money. Yeah, so it's a lot of learning that you have to go through to capture audience. So I would like to hear some of you. I was able to pick a few for each of the group, but I would love to first see if there's any feedback from somebody. What caught your eye from a group? What did you appreciate from a group? Or what do you think needed to improve? Anybody who wants to give feedback? Oh, okay.
Me, I would like to comment on our group 4. We had the best presenter, by the way, in the room. She grabbed our attention. You were all laughing because the way she was presenting, like she was bringing out the point and the intonation of the sound, the way she was pronouncing her words. Yeah, maybe the only thing she was missing, the eye contact. But she grabbed your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Group 4. Anybody else who had a comment on a presenter or feedback you want to give somebody?
Thank you very much. May I want to comment on time management. I think most of them weren't precise. They came, then they started talking about everything in a story. I think you guys had to just summarize, and then after you give us the points. Thank you so much.
Okay, great, thank you. So we are standing in between our lunch and the next afternoon session. We've actually managed time very well. So I'm going to use 5 minutes to just give feedback. Number 1, you all performed excellently in terms of understanding the case, discussing it, and articulating it. That was super, super, super on all the groups. Group 1, what went well? Your time management was very good. Your responses were good. However, the presenter did not introduce herself. And when you come in the front, even when they've introduced you, you must say your name again. That is the only way people will capture who you are. So that was feedback for Group 1. Group 3 took over the space for Group 2. That was number 1. So I like their speed. They were like, don't wait, we are here. Eh? So the speaker gave very, very good responses to the case. And you took more than a minute extra. Why? You actually took more time explaining the case, and your good responses came much later. So if you're pitching for something, you would beat around the bush, and then you would lose time. And then the good content comes much later when people are pacing for time. But otherwise, thank you very much. Group 2 used, also never introduced yourself. Your name wasn't said. You just mentioned I'm from Group 2, but we missed knowing your name. The responses were systematic. The way you were bringing them, they were flowing from the case. And you used 30 minutes extra. So watching time is important. If it was a plane, it would have left you by the 30 seconds. So thank you. Thank you very much. Group 4 introduced herself, greeted us, said, hello, my name is so-and-so, and was articulated the case very well. Answers were good and deep. You could feel there was extra, and the audience was engaged. The only challenge was they used more time than they were given. So you lost on time, but the rest was super. Thank you. Group 5 greeted us, introduced yourself. Answers were innovative, and they were deep. Yeah, they were unique. They were picking almost everything we learned in the session. So that was a very good one. And though you used more time, more like an hour, no, 1 minute, sorry. You used an extra 1 minute in your presentation. So that was something you need to learn. Group 6 introduced the name and the group number. So that emphasized that, yes, I'm so-and-so from group this. And then used the quick summary to present the case. A quick summary, that was super. And the responses were on point and actually saved us 16 minutes. 16 seconds. This group was like, what? 16 seconds. Thank you so much, Group 6. That was a super, super presentation. Group 7 mentioned the group number, but didn't tell us the name of the presenter. That missed. And there was no eye contact. I was trying to see whether this person was going to give us the eye contact. They failed completely. And the presentation, at least the points were very good. But we missed seeing your eyes going to the paper and coming to us. You focus on reading everything from the paper. Yeah? Thank you, Group 7. Group 8 introduced self, had a smile. Wow, that was so comfortable. Had a smile and gave us eye contact. That one, I really liked it. Shared well the issues, but you spent more time describing the case.